Thanks for the updates. Bringing in studio with us is Ariel Sorrent, i24 News senior Middle East correspondent. Yaakov Lapin next to him, security analyst and host of the Lapin Assessment. And joining us in the studio, usually in the United States, is Eric Mandel, the founder and director of the Middle East Political Information Network, and senior editor for security at the Jerusalem Report. So thank you all for being with us. Gentlemen, good to have you. Yaakov, I want to start with you and just looking at the sort of status of the standoff. If we look at this militarily, after all, it's a war. What's happening with shipping, the deployments of U.S. military assets? What's your description of where things sit today?
Well, it seems that the U.S. blockade of the traffic heading towards and out of Iranian ports is pretty effective. It seems that the chokehold is very painful. The Iranians continue to lose hundreds of millions of dollars every single day. Maybe they're able to sneak, a ship here, a ship there, but at the end of the day, the vast majority of traffic isn't reaching them or able to leave them, which means that they are in a financial emergency, a major emergency, and this is on top of the train wreck that was their economy before the war and the hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, billions, that they have sustained in damages during the war. So when you add it all together, they really are not sitting comfortably. Time is working against this regime. And also, there's this story, there's this stop clock. We don't exactly know how much time is left until the oil basically it's unsustainable for them to keep adding, to their storage.
But your storage capacity gets maxed.
The storage capacity is maxed, and that's going to have a very detrimental effect on a lot of the oil drilling and the oil wells. So when you put it all together, time is not working on the Iranian side. I think this naval blockade is the most effective step that the Trump administration can take. I'm very glad that he is sticking to this step because it's exactly the right way to choke off the regime. If they continue to refuse compromise, they will be looking at ruin and collapse, even just through this step. And if they, reach a compromise, then we'll have to see what that entails. I do think that there's more room for diplomacy than meets the eyes based on what President Trump said yesterday about this new improved paper. I don't think that this was just a throwaway comment. That could be a hint that the Iranians submitted something that President Trump is more pleased with, more prepared to talk about. The fact that it's in writing makes it more interesting than the unofficial back channels. So let's stay modest in terms of our forecasts and where this is going, because we've had officials, Israeli officials, saying for the past 2 days that they're skeptical that this is going to lead to a breakthrough. I don't think that these assessments are actually very helpful for anyone because nobody thought that they would almost reach a breakthrough. Then the IRGC would torpedo that, and that there's this power struggle and chaos. So we're in a very unpredictable stage, and it's best to remain modest when it comes to predictions.
Eric, looking at the effort being made right now, as far as we can tell, there are still executions in Iran taking place regularly right now of protesters. The regime, whatever's left of it, still looking as ugly as ever. How much damage may have already been done just in this negotiation process in the last 2 weeks to those efforts to undermine this regime? In other words, is this process boosting them in some way that is harmful to the overall efforts here? And do you see a negotiated outcome as even possible with this regime?
So from my perspective, there is nothing except for regime collapse, followed by hopefully positive regime change that is going to really change the calculus here. The Iranians are experts at the Persian bazaar, and they are in the negotiating dance. I am also optimistic in the sense that the president has something, I think he started a little too late, but having a blockade, I want it to be fully effective because the Iranians are playing for time. Yeah. So if the blockade is fully effective, of both ways, because commercial traffic coming in so they can't have things for the petrochemical industry and for the oil industry, and time goes on, and maybe time goes on that the Chinese, their massive storage starts decreasing, I think it can go much further. The problem is the time constraints that President Trump has. Persian time is just to survive. American time has 5 more weeks before the War Powers Act. Then you also have the American July 4th, the 250th anniversary of America. You don't want to be in a war. And everybody knows about Democrats and Republicans in the midterm elections. So you're dealing with a situation right now where time is the most important thing. And now I think President Trump has the right idea. And the only way he's going to be able to get his hands on taking over time is he needs a major address in front of the American people, saying to them, and maybe reading from a teleprompter, but being very dispassionate and saying, this is an American security interest. Why? What is an international waterway? What are objectives? What's success? What's failure? Failure will be the Straits of Taiwan. And the only way that we're going to win is regime change, be pro-Iranian. And that means if you're pro-Iranian, that you might want to consider arming the people. I know there's some people against that, but after 40,000 were killed, what are we really scared of going forward here? There's going to be chaos, there's going to be anarchy, but it's the only thing that's going to make a full difference to stabilize the region in the long term.
Ariel, I want to bring in this, and also, look, whatever you have teed up to say, but if you can involve the sort of Israeli, let's call it predicament in this moment, and how do you describe, where Israel's sitting with all this going on between the U.S. and Iran?
Israel is sitting on the side, watching, waiting in coordination, close coordination with Washington. I think it has a very significant amount of faith in President Trump in maintaining the major red lines. But, you talked about the timelines. We also have to remember that there is, contrary to regular Iranian conduct where they are the ones playing for time, right now that strategy has been flipped on its head because the Iranians also have a sand clock, hourglass that is running out. And in terms of the time frame, it is put more or less in the same time frame that you described for the Trump timeline. What is the Iranian timeline? They need to store the oil that they're pumping. And for that, they need ships. And if they don't have ships coming and going, offloading oil, they don't have where to store their oil. And if they don't have where to store their oil, eventually they're going to have to shut down their oil pumps. And if you do that in many facilities, you can't restart that. And so that will deliver a death blow to Iran's oil infrastructure. And they don't have that much time to play for. We're talking about the most favorable assessments for the Iranians give them 60 days from the moment this blockade entered. We are already a couple weeks into that. And so the Iranians here, they're under a lot of pressure in terms of the timing. And this is really flipping their own strategy against them. And so they don't have all the time in the world. Neither does Trump. But the question is going to be which timeline is going to run out first. And the Iranians are not in their comfortable, usual seat of simply waiting it out. They do not have that luxury. And every day that passes, not only is it costing them hundreds of millions of dollars, as Yaakov described, but they are approaching a very clear and danger zone that could impact their economy for decades to come. And so they will have, there's no choice here. They will have to make a decision
choose between
eventually.
Those paths.
And so as far as Trump is concerned, he is showing, telegraphing, that he has that time, that his hourglass has more sand in it than the Iranians do. That could indeed be the case. None of us here in the room knows exactly how much oil Iran has stored and how many ships where around the world, but there is a clear, definitive timeline for the Iranians, and time is running out.
We'll come back to you, all three of you, in a moment. Another angle to bring on this, and we may be officially, as we mentioned, in an ongoing